The last movie that I saw in theaters before COVID hit was Onward. And I wasn't sure when I was going to go to the movies again. And I really enjoy going to the movies. Before the pandemic hit, I was on the AMC A list, which means that I pay a set price per month, $25 or $30 a month, and I could go see 3 movies a week. Any movie that was playing in an AMC theater, didn't matter if it was IMAX, 3D, whatever, 3 movies a week. It reset on Fridays, which meant if there was a big movie coming out that I was really excited for, like a Marvel movie, I could go see it opening night on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all without having to pay for a movie ticket. When I could, I liked to stack those movies into a single day because the theater nearest me, the AMC theater nearest me, was about 20 minutes away, which isn't far, but when I could get the most out of that trip, I would. So sometimes I would see 2 or even 3 movies in a day, figuring out ahead of time which ones I could see, factoring in the amount of time. It's about 20 minutes of commercials before a movie starts, and also factoring in, roughly 8 to 10 minutes of credits for most movies. So if it says it starts at this time with 20 minutes of previews, it's actually going to start there. What's the running time? Take out about 10 minutes for that. So what can I... And I was successfully able to get some days where I saw through 3 movies in a day. Although it seems now like, and it's even then, but more so now, it seems like theaters are intentionally setting their run times or their start times so that you can't do that as easily. Because I tried looking into that a couple times on a much bigger theater that had a lot more screens than my local one. And it still wasn't going to work. So I think they're on to the game. Anyway, point is, I really liked to go to the theater. I went at least once a week, most weeks. Sometimes more than once, unless I could stack it all up like that. I like to support theaters. I'm not one of those people that will sneak in my own food. I understand the food is overpriced, but my mentality is it's overpriced because people aren't buying the food, because they're sneaking in their own food. So what little money they make is from the food. So when people sneak in their own food, that means that the price goes up. So I try to support local theaters. I buy the food there. The A-list gives me rewards with that stuff too. So I was always okay with that. And Onward was the last one that I saw before everything closed down. And there were multiple points in time where it seemed like theaters were going to restart again. Tenet was a big one, and it didn't really happen for a while. And then with things like Disney Plus having movies right on the streaming service and HBO Max, Wonder Woman was a big one that I probably would have gone to if I couldn't have watched that at home, but I could. But as we've, the last couple months now, as it's been, really starting to get back to some form of normal, I've been trying to prepare myself, and you can call me a baby or a pansy or whatever you want, but it's been a while since I've been around a lot of people, and I wasn't sure how I was going to react to this thing that I hadn't experienced in 15 months. So there were a couple movies that I missed. I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise, and I have not yet seen the new Spiral movie, but I knew F9 was one that I wanted to see in the theaters. Black Widow is another one that I probably would have gone to. At this point I will go to it, but setting F9 aside, I probably would have gone to Black Widow if I couldn't have bought it at home. And I'll probably do both. I'll probably buy it to watch at home on Disney Plus and go to see it in the theaters. But F9 became, for me, the film that I knew would be my first trip back to the theater. And I wasn't sure how it was going to go. My local theater is still closed. My local AMC theater is still closed. And there is another one that's maybe 30 or 40 minutes away, but it's a town that I'm not familiar with, and it's an area that I don't really like to drive. So to me, my best option now is a theater that's an hour away. And it's farther away, but it's in an area that I know, and I have friends and family that live in the area, so it makes sense for me to go to that one over the one that's slightly closer. So for the foreseeable future, every time that I go to the movies, I'm going to be driving an hour. Which to some people that's their norm, and some people have to drive even farther. But I was driving down last weekend on my way to see F9, and I hadn't even thought about my AMC rewards, and I knew that back early last year they had put everyone on pause, and I kind of hadn't thought about it since then. So I've gotten a new phone since then, so I had to re-download the app, try to remember my password, got logged in. And then it said on there that, like, if you haven't restarted it manually yet, it's going to restart automatically in July. So I'm glad that didn't take me by surprise. So I went in, restarted it. I still had a $5 reward. So I got to use that for some money off of concessions. But I restarted that. And just the way the timing worked out when I went to see F9, the one that I wanted to see, the time that I wanted to see was an IMAX showing. And I'm not a particular fan of IMAX, but that was the time that I wanted to see. And with AMC A-List, you don't have to pay extra for that. So I was kind of going back and forth in my head on the drive down. Do I want to see this one at the time that I want to see and pay extra for the IMAX? Or do I want to wait another half hour and see it for regular price? And then I think that's kind of what got my brain thinking of, what about AMC A-List? Can I, is that a thing still? Can I reactivate that? Because I knew that there was no price difference for IMAX there. So I got to the theater, signed back up for the thing, and I knew going into the theater that this IMAX showing was going to be one of those ones where you pick your seat, which is not something that I do a lot. The theaters and the screens that I go to don't often have that requirement. So I did that thing that you do where I tried to find the smallest quantity of seats in one section and pick one there so that it would be least likely for someone else to sit next to me. So I found an area it was only 3 seats in a row off to the side. So I picked one there and no one else sat next to me, so it was all good. But being in the theater, it was a little strange because this theater that I went to, it was one that I've been to before, but I didn't go to often because it was so far away. That now is going to be my main theater until my new one, which I don't know if my local one is going to open up. I haven't really looked into it. I don't know if it's just still closed or if it's closed and done. And there is another one about 20 minutes away, but it's not an AMC. So to me, I don't think it's worth it. It's closer to drive, but I think with the amount of movies that I see, the ticket prices is going to make up for the price of gas. So I'm driving an hour to this other one, and it's 18 screens. I remember when it opened. I think I was in high school, maybe junior high when it opened, and it was like a big deal. And me and my family, we still all call it by its old name. I think it's had like 3 or 4 different names now, and we still call it the old name because that's just what we know it as. But I had this memory of it as being nice and being clean, and particularly the bathrooms. I had memories of being clean. And so I'm going into the theater, and it's just not as nice as I remembered it being. And my head was like going back and forth, and it was like, is it dirtier because they haven't been keeping up with it? Is it dirtier because they need more workers because there's a lot of people that aren't working right now? Is it dirtier because it's always been dirty and I got a false memory of it being cleaner in my head? So that kind of, it really stuck out to me as I was getting ready to see my first movie back in the theaters. Was like, maybe this wasn't as good as I remember. This being both the specific theater and the experience, right? Maybe I've built it up in my head as this great thing that I miss, and maybe it wasn't really that great. But, you know, whatever. I dealt with, I don't want to say it was dirty and messy. It just wasn't what I remember. But it was fine. So went up to the concession booth and I asked them. So AMC has these refillable buckets that they put out every year. I've got mine right over there, which is what I'm looking at. And because they haven't been open, I was like, are they going to have these? Are you going to be able to buy these right now? Are they going to wait until 2022? And normally they've got them like hanging up and on display because they really want to, you know, push them. And I didn't see any of them. And I didn't see anybody else carrying them. Usually you see people, you know, carrying them around. I didn't see any of them. And when I got up to the concession stand, I happened to see just a couple stacked up like behind some boxes. And so I asked because I've been going through the calendar for this channel and figuring out what movies are coming out, what do I need to watch to prepare for those movies. So I know that like I'm going to be seeing a lot of movies even still yet this year. So I asked him, I was like, are you guys selling the buckets? Like, is that still a thing? And he's like, yeah. And so I got my bucket and my drink, and they're still just the 2020 buckets. So I guess they're just going to finish off the year with the 20, because they say the year on them. So I guess they're just going to finish 2021 off using the 2020 buckets, and then they'll start fresh with 2022. I was really hoping that there would be a new bucket that would have Dominic Toretto on it, because that would have been cool, but no. So I got my bucket, and like, as dumb as it sounds, like that was my feeling of like, we're back. Like, this experience is back, because I don't make popcorn to watch movies at home. So like, popcorn to me goes with going to the movies, not just watching movies, but going to the movies. So I got my popcorn, got my drink, and I was like, okay, now I feel back, right? I wasn't even in the theater yet, but it was just, now we're here. And so maybe the fact that I didn't have a bucket that I brought with me like I normally did might have been why that was delayed. But then once I got the bucket and I got my drink, I was like, okay, we're ready to go. So I go in, found my seat. Nobody was next to me, thank goodness. And I've had very, very good theater experiences, and I've had very, very bad theater experiences. The first 3 or 4 times that I saw Avengers Endgame, which I saw it, I think 8 times, a lot. The first 3 or 4, there was the first one, the very first time I went to see it, somebody literally asked me to move from my seat because they wanted my seat. I was like the 4th person in. I got the exact seat that I wanted. And then this guy comes in with a bunch of other people, and they ask me to scoot down. Literally one chair. And this guy sits down in my chair, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect seat. And he said that like 4 times. I wanted to punch him so bad because he's just bragging about how he got my seat. They wouldn't shut up the whole time. He spilled his popcorn on me at one point. The second viewing, there were people behind us, and one of them literally didn't know who Captain America was. Like, that's how clueless she was. She kept asking, who's that guy? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? And she was whispering, but the guy she was with was talking full volume, answering all of her questions the entire movie. And at one point, someone that I was with turned around and asked them to stop, just shut up. And they didn't. And then it was either that one or the third one. There was someone brought a baby, not a child, a baby. And the baby kept crying and screaming like babies do. So eventually they got kicked out, thank goodness. And just, so I've had some very poor theater experiences, and I've had other experiences where everyone's quiet and it's fine. It's no problem. So I was really curious how this showing was going to be, because it had been 15 months, and I assumed that for a lot of other people, this was going to be their first movie back. So I was like, have people, forgotten etiquette? Have they forgotten the rules? Oh my gosh, I've had some movies that have had teenagers that not only are getting up and moving to the completely different side of the theater and back and forth. There's multiple sets of friends who keep moving back and forth to talk to their friends, and they're on their phones, and the big bright flashes are going off, and the flash of the camera is going off, and they're talking and laughing. So, like, I'm expecting some of that to be going on. There's a lot of kids at the showing, so I'm expecting that that's going to be an issue. I don't want to say anything too nasty here, but there were some older people, and in my experience, older people tend to move in and out a lot during the movie. They don't care if they miss stuff. So, like, all these things are popping up in my head that's just like, oh my gosh, like, this might not go the way that I want it to go. But honestly, I don't remember anything negative happening in the showing. I don't remember any kids screaming. I don't remember anyone walking back and forth. And I was in a spot where if you had walked past, you would have blocked the screen. Like, I didn't have a great seat. I chose a worse seat for the increased chances that no one would be next to me. I'm a big guy. I like to have open space on both sides of me, you know, and then I can hold my popcorn more comfortably, which then just makes me a bigger guy. But yeah, I know there were people that moved in and out, but like I don't remember them being in my way or taking a particularly long time. I don't remember the kids being an issue. You know, I didn't see anyone's phone flash or anything like that. So it was a very, while I was worrying beforehand, once the movie started, it was a very good experience in the actual showing. And then I went and got my refill, left, drove home, and I had done it. I had gone back to the movies. And then I went back to see F9 a second time with my siblings, 3 of my siblings. And we went to a different theater. And this theater is much smaller, which means there's fewer screens. So normally, I would expect this theater to be more crowded. Because the other theater that I had gone to before, it's a bigger theater, so more people go there. But A, there's more screens, and B, each room is bigger. So even if there's more people in there, you're more spaced out. So between the fact that there's fewer screens and all the rooms are smaller, I thought it would be more crowded. But we went on a Tuesday, so we were the only ones in the theater, which was great because then we got to talk the whole time, which I would not have done if there were other people in there. But I kept checking to make sure that no one else came in late. There was no one else in the theater. And so I had rewatched all 8 of the movies within the past couple weeks. I suggested to my siblings that they rewatch the first one. I know my sister rewatched the first one. I don't know if my brother rewatched any of them. But, you know, they had some questions, and so I got to answer their questions as we were talking, and I, you know, kept making jokes at different things. But then we would all just be like, what is going on with that? What? I don't understand that. Why did that happen? And so I was able to pull out my phone and put in notes, which, again, I would not have done if other people would have been in the theater. But it was just my family, so I felt like that was okay. So at this point, I'm 2 for 2. Going back to the movies has been really good. But I know that I know that at some point it's gonna dip, and I'm just wondering when that's gonna be. But it's, you know, at the same time, it's like a really big deal, and it's like not a big deal at all. It's like I built it up in my head. I was like, this is the first time I'm gonna be like around a lot of people, and like I still wear my mask in the store. Right, so I was like, I'm not gonna wear my mask because I'm gonna be eating food, and it's gonna feel dumb to wear my mask and then get to my seat and then take it off. Which I think that was the rule for a while, but now it just says, if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask. So I had to like prepare myself to go into a public building without wearing a mask. Which again, call me a baby or a pansy or whatever. It's just not something I'm used to. And so I was very nervous that it was going to feel weird and foreign and different, but it all was very familiar. The crowds were great. Especially with the kids, because some of these kids have probably never been to a movie before. Some of these kids look like they might have been 5 or 6 years old, which means they would have been 4 or 5 or even younger when the pandemic hit. So it's like, this might have been their first movies ever. And maybe it's just that they were sitting far away, and so maybe they were causing problems, and it just happened that I wasn't next to them. But I was very happy with my returns to the theater. 2 for 2 so far. What's coming up this week? The Purge. I think The Purge is coming out this week. So that should be mostly adults. But I imagine several of those are going to be teenagers. And I guess I'm in old man mode now because I'm like, these dang kids these days on their phones during the movies. Which, obviously, I've now admitted that I do if no one else is around. Or, I'll admit, if no one's behind me, sometimes I'll get on my phone to take notes on the movie if no one's behind me, because it doesn't bother the people in front of me. But I try to be aware of my surroundings and not do things that would bother other people. Try not to get up and, moving up and down. Or if I know I'm going to be doing that, I'll sit on an end and not in the middle. But I've rambled enough. I thought this was going to be a short video. I don't know if I'm capable of making a short video because I just get into it and I talk and I ramble. But that's my experience going back to the movies. I hope that other people that are going back to the movies for the first time have similar good experiences, and I hope it's not bad. I've already heard one of the podcasts that I listened to. Somebody said that they just never turned the lights off in his theater, and he said he got up at one point to tell someone at the theater, and they still never turned off. So, my thoughts go out to those of you having worse theater experiences than I am. But I've had a good return. No problems, no issues, good memories. Popcorn still smells and tastes great. And is still just as terrible for me as it always is. But I'm looking forward to continuing to go to the theater, even though I now have to drive an hour both ways. I really hope my local theater opens back up again, but I don't know if it's going to. But that's enough for now. Thank you for watching. If you've gone back to the theater, let me know how your experience has gone. Or if you just have theater stories, maybe I'll do a video someday on just some of my theater stories of the things that have happened. Because boy, has there been some things that have happened. So if you've got any theater stories, let me know. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.